My husband told the doctor to end my life support that afternoon, while laughing about what he planned to do next, not knowing I was fully conscious and heard every word. If you're watching this, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I want to see how far the truth travels. My name is Maya Ellis, and before I tell you what happened, you need to know this. The dead are not the ones who suffer the most. It's the ones trapped between life and death, forced to hear the people they love revealing who they truly are. The last night I remember before my world collapsed was soaked in rain and headlights. I was driving home, exhausted, thinking about nothing more serious than leftover soup waiting in the fridge. Then came the skid. The sound of rubber screaming against wet asphalt, the brakes sinking under my foot like wet paper, the wheel jerking like it had a mind of its own. A shadow of realization sliced through me. I was no longer driving the car. I was just a passenger in a coffin made of metal and momentum. The crash didn't feel like impact. It felt like erasure, like someone took a knife and cut my life clean in half. When consciousness dragged itself back into me, it wasn't gentle. It was violent, cruel, like waking up buried alive. I tried to inhale and felt a tube jam down my throat, forcing air into my lungs in slow, mechanical gulps. My limbs were weightless, useless. My eyes wouldn't open. My voice didn't exist. My body had become a prison I couldn't escape. For a moment, I thought I was dead. Then I heard footsteps, a chair scraping, a voice. My husband, Jordan. Calm, too calm. "Doctor," he said, "tell me again. She can't hear us, right?" The doctor replied in that sterile tone people use when they've given up. No reaction, no voluntary movement. She's effectively gone. 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 As if I wasn't right there inside this silent cage, screaming so hard the inside of my skull felt like it would split open. Jordan exhaled long and low, a sound not of grief, but relief. And that was the first time a cold truth slid under my skin like a needle. Something was wrong. He wasn't sad, he wasn't scared. He was waiting. The doctor continued. If she does wake, her brain function will be severely compromised. She won't be herself. A rustle of paper. A sigh. We can continue supporting her body, but the chance of meaningful recovery is low. Meaningful recovery. I wanted to rip the words out of his mouth. I wasn't a file he was closing. I wasn't a machine he was powering down. I was still here, screaming where no one could hear. And then Jordan spoke, voice steady, in a way no loving husband's voice should ever be. "What happens if we stop everything?" The doctor hesitated. "You mean withdraw life support?" "Yes, today." Today. The word hit me like another collision. It wasn't panic, it was certainty, preparedness, expectation. "Mr. Ellis," the doctor said gently, "that is an irreversible decision." Jordan's voice dropped so low, I almost didn't hear it, but I felt it like a blade pressed to my throat. "She wouldn't want this. Letting her go is the kindest thing. Kindest thing." I felt the monitor next to me spike as my heart raced, but Jordan didn't even flinch. He didn't come to hold my hand or whisper comfort. Instead, he leaned closer to the doctor and said something that shattered the last piece of hope I had left. "And the insurance?" My soul froze. The doctor cleared his throat awkwardly. "In cases like this, yes, it pays out, but that's not—" Jordan cut him off. "Good, good. My death was good. My death was profitable. My death was his plan." When the doctor stepped out, Jordan stayed. I heard him stand, felt the shadow of his body leaning over me, and then his hand rested on my arm, soft, almost affectionate, and he whispered, "You should have died in the crash. You weren't supposed to make it this far." My heart slammed against my ribs. He chuckled quietly. "Don't worry, it'll be over soon. They think you're gone already." My pulse spiked so fast, the monitor began beeping erratically. Jordan laughed under his breath. "Look at that. Too bad you can't do anything about it." The door opened. He stepped back. A woman's voice floated in, silky, amused, vicious in its lightness. "Alina, his lover." "Is it done?" she asked. Jordan kissed her. I heard it, inches from my helpless body. "This afternoon," he murmured against her lips. "She'll be gone, and we can finally live." Alina exhaled with a soft, satisfied moan. "And the money?" "Ours," Jordan said. "All of it. No one suspects anything. Then Alina whispered the sentence that confirmed my worst nightmare wasn't just real, it was deliberate. You really think no one will connect the crash to the brakes? A silence so sharp it sliced my insides open. Jordan's voice dropped. I planned it right. No one will ever know. But I knew. I heard. I was alive inside my coffin of flesh, and he had no idea. My husband had designed my death. My accident wasn't an accident. My coma wasn't a tragedy. My silence was his weapon. My survival was his inconvenience. And what he planned next was even worse. I just didn't know it yet. When the doctor finally left the room, a silence settled over me so thick it felt suffocating, heavier than the ventilator forcing air into my lungs. Jordan didn't speak at first. I could hear him breathing, the way he paced slowly around my bed, like someone inspecting a property he was about to demolish. Then he stopped at my side and let out a soft, amused snort. You should see yourself right now, he whispered close to my ear, his voice low and poisonous. Weak, silent, perfect, perfect. The words sank into me like ice. He didn't see a wife. He saw an outcome, a plan, a victory he believed was already his. The door clicked again and Alina entered, her heels tapping lightly on the hospital floor. Did he agree? She asked. He will, Jordan replied. He's one of those moral types. He just needs to pretend he cares first. Alina giggled, a sound so light it made my stomach twist. I can't believe she's still alive. After everything, after that whole break thing. Jordan cut her off sharply. Don't say that. Why? She can't hear us. A bitter laugh escaped him. Even if she could, what would she do? Blink for help? He leaned closer to me again. I felt the warmth of his breath against my cheek. You hear that, Maya? Even if you're trapped in there, there's nothing you can do. My heart was racing again, the machine beside me screaming my terror into the room. Jordan looked at it and sighed. She's still fighting, even now. Let her, Alina said, shrugging. Not like it matters. By tonight, it'll all be over. She said it so casually, as if they were discussing canceling a reservation, not murdering me. Jordan walked to the window, his voice dropping lower, darker, as if revealing a part of himself he'd never shown even to her. There's more we need to talk about. Alina's tone sharpened, curious. More? The money, all of it. We already talked about that, she replied. You get the insurance payout, you sell the house, we start over. Jordan turned around slowly. You think that's all this is? Alina hesitated. What do you mean? Jordan stepped closer to her. You think this is about love? About us? Her breath caught. Isn't it? He laughed, a quiet, humorless sound that made my blood go cold. Alina, you really don't understand me at all. She shifted nervously. Jordan, you're scaring me. Good, he whispered. You should be. She swallowed hard. You told me we'd be together. We will, if you're useful. A tremor ran through her voice. Useful how? Jordan walked back to my bedside. When Maya dies, everything transfers to me. But that's not enough. He traced a finger down my arm. I wanted to recoil, to rip myself away, but I was frozen under his touch. Maya had things I could never access while she was alive, things she never told me about. Alina frowned. What things? Jordan's smile was too slow, too cold. Accounts, trusts, property. Assets tied to her family. She came from money, old money, locked money. The kind you only inherit when older relatives die, or when something tragic happens. My heart plunged. My family, my parents. Jordan's voice dropped to a whisper. Her parents are still traveling. Somewhere remote, last I checked. If they don't return, everything funnels straight to me. Alina stepped back. Jordan, no, that's too much, he chuckled. Too much? You were fine with killing her. What's two more? Alina's breathing became unstable. I didn't sign up for this. I only wanted to be with you. You wanted her life, Jordan snapped, and I can give it to you, all of it. Alina shook her head. I don't want to hurt anyone else. Then you're useless, he said simply. I heard her gasp. What does that mean? It means Jordan replied, voice low and deadly quiet. That once Maya's gone, I won't need you anymore. Not unless you prove you can handle what's next. Silence. A trembling inhale. What's next? She finally whispered. I need those assets, Jordan said. Every last one. And I need someone who won't break down when things get messy. If that's not you, then I'll find someone else. The betrayal hit her like a punch. I could hear it in her breathing. Jordan, she whispered, voice cracking. I did everything for you. I helped you. I was there. He cut her off. You were convenient. Alina's breath hitched. Suddenly, I heard her step closer to my bed. I felt her hand on my wrist, her fingers trembling. She's ruining everything, she whispered. She's not even alive and she's ruining everything. Jordan sighed impatiently. Alina, but she snapped, her voice rising with a quiet hysteria. You promised me her life. You promised me her house, her money, her place. You promised. Jordan grabbed her arm. Promise or not, she has to die first. Stay focused. When? Alina choked out. When does she die? Tonight, Jordan said coldly. The doctor will sign off. It'll look like mercy. He leaned closer to Alina. And mercy always pays well. Alina exhaled shakily. And after her? We deal with her parents, he said. One accident deserves another. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Jordan, that's murder. So was this, he said, tapping my leg under the blanket. But you didn't seem to mind when you were trying on her jewelry in the mirror. Alina fell silent. I felt her grip tighten around my wrist. Do you want me or not? She asked. Jordan didn't answer immediately. Then he said, prove it. My blood froze. Alina stepped closer. I felt her breath near my cheek. How? You helped tonight, Jordan said. You're in the room. You support the decision to end the life support. You cry. You act devastated. You convince anyone who asks that this was the kindest, most humane thing to do. Alina hesitated. And if I don't? Jordan's voice hardened. Then you're disposable. She sobbed softly. Fine. I'll do it. Good girl, he murmured. My stomach twisted. Then Jordan lowered his voice again. There's one more thing. What? Alina whispered. We can't risk her waking up before the doctor signs off. If she somehow comes back, even for a moment, everything collapses. She won't, Alina said quickly. Jordan's silence said he didn't trust that. Then he spoke the sentence that made my entire soul turn to fire. We need to make sure she stays under until the machines go off. My blood ran cold. Alina whispered, What are you saying? Jordan replied softly. A little air blockage, a bend in the tube, something small, something that looks like equipment failure. Just enough to ensure she doesn't wake. Not yet. Alina's breath trembled. Jordan. He cut her off sharply. Do it. She didn't move. I waited, internally screaming, begging God, fate, anyone to stop her trembling hands as she leaned closer. I felt her touch the ventilator tubing. And then, horrifyingly, she began to fold part of the tube between her fingers. Not enough to stop the air yet, just enough to show she was willing. Jordan whispered, Good. Tonight, she dies. And tomorrow, we start the life we deserve. I felt the airflow change. Slightly weaker, slightly tighter, slightly deadlier. I was running out of time, and no one knew. No one, except one person who hadn't arrived yet. The nurse who would eventually save me, but I didn't know she existed. I only knew this. If she didn't walk into that room soon, I would die before Jordan ever signed the paper. I could feel the air thinning with every passing minute, the pressure in my lungs tightening like invisible hands around my chest. The bend in the ventilator tube was small enough not to trigger alarms, but large enough that each breath felt like a war I was slowly losing. Jordan and Alina had left the room to give the doctor time to think, but I knew the truth. Every minute they were gone was another piece of their plan falling into place. Every second, another nail in my coffin. The room seemed darker without them, quieter in a way that terrified me. Because now, there was no noise to distract me from the growing truth in my body. I was suffocating. My lungs clenched and burned, desperation clawing up my throat as I tried to force more air through the obstructed tube. I could hear the faint wheeze of the machine struggling to push oxygen through the narrow passage. My vision flickered with tiny dots of light. The edges of the world dimmed. I wanted to scream, to thrash, to rip the tube out, to do anything except lie there and let their plan crush the life out of me. I counted each breath in my mind like a prisoner counting the seconds before execution. The door opened suddenly. A nurse entered, but not the one who usually checked in. This was a new face, young, tired, distracted. Her badge said Nora. She didn't look at me long enough to see I was panicking. She barely glanced at the monitor. She typed notes into a tablet, checking boxes with the bored rhythm of someone on the third double shift in a row. "Vitals stable," she murmured to herself. No, I wanted to scream. They're not. They're not. They're not. She reached toward the tubing, and for a fraction of a second, hope surged through me, but she was only adjusting the tape on my cheek to secure the ventilator. The bend was inches away from her fingers. One move left or right, and she could have seen it. But she didn't. Nora checked a few more numbers, sighing softly, then turned and left, not knowing she had walked into a murder scene and stepped out again without noticing. The sound of the door clicking shut was like a shovel of dirt thrown onto my grave. The world grew softer, blurrier, as though sinking underwater. My thoughts became slow, thick, heavy. Jordan's words replayed through my head like a curse I couldn't escape. Tonight she dies. But it wouldn't even be tonight. It would be now, alone, silent, suffocating. The minutes stretched and twisted, my mind slipping in and out of clarity. Sometimes I drifted so far I felt myself falling backward into a dark ocean, sinking deeper with each shallow gasp. And then, like a distorted echo, memories started rising. Not gentle ones, sharp ones. Moments I had ignored, moments I had explained away. Jordan screaming at me after I got a promotion, saying he didn't want a wife who thought she was above him. Jordan pushing me during an argument, then blaming me for falling wrong. Jordan insisting we cancel my life insurance meeting because he didn't trust insurance people, only to secretly sign his own policies behind my back. Jordan encouraging me to send money to my parents, telling me it would help them, only for me to find out he had altered their contact information in my phone for months. Jordan taking my keys the night my brakes failed. And the memory that hit hardest, the last conversation with my mother, before she and my father left for their trip. She had said something strange, something I dismissed. "Honey, we just want to ask, are you truly safe?" I remembered laughing. Safe? From what? From the man I had married? Now every memory was a blade. Every smile he had given me, a mask. Every promise he had whispered, a lie. The machine beside me hissed weakly, its sound fading as my body grew numb. The darkness closed around me again, and I felt myself drifting, floating somewhere between life and something colder, somewhere empty, somewhere waiting, and then footstep, fast, sharp, urgent. The door burst open. It wasn't Jordan, it wasn't Alina, it wasn't Nora. It was the one person whose name I didn't know yet, the one person who would become the reason I survived. I didn't know her story, or why she walked into my room at that exact second, but I would one day learn that she sensed something was wrong from the moment she saw my chart outside the door. She rushed in, eyes scanning me, scanning the monitors, scanning the tubing, and she froze. Her pupils tightened, her breath hitched. I could see it in her face. She understood instantly. "Oh my God." Her voice cracked with horror. She sprinted to the ventilator, her hands trembling as she traced the tubing from my mouth to the machine. She found the bend, the obstruction, the slow suffocation someone had engineered, and she didn't hesitate. "Who did this?" she whispered, furious. She unblocked the tube with one quick, decisive motion, and air surged back into my body so fast my lungs screamed in shock. My chest heaved as the machine forced oxygen back where it belonged. My vision exploded with white light. She grabbed my hand. "Squeeze if you can hear me." I couldn't. My body was too weak. But my eyes flickered, barely noticeable, but real. She saw it. Her expression hardened with a rage that burned so bright it almost scared me. She leaned close to my ear. "Someone tried to kill you," she whispered, her voice trembling with anger. "But I swear, I won't let them finish the job." In that moment, for the first time since the brake failure, since the hospital, Since Jordan's whispered plan, I felt something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. And then I heard voices in the hall. Jordan. Alina. Coming back. The nurse looked toward the door, then back at me. Stay with me, she whispered urgently. Because things are about to get very, very dangerous. The footsteps outside grew louder, clearer, unmistakable. Jordan's heavy, confident stride. Alina's sharp click of heels beside him. The nurse, my only lifeline, looked at me with eyes full of urgency and fear, then glanced toward the door, as if calculating whether she could slip out unnoticed. But before she could move, the doorknob rattled. She reacted instantly, yanking a curtain halfway around my bed, hiding the ventilator tubing behind her body as she pretended to adjust a monitor. When the door opened, she had transformed her panic, erased and replaced with the cold, professional mask nurses wear when families enter the room. Jordan stepped inside first, his face arranged into a picture-perfect expression of devastated concern. It almost made me sick. Alina lingered behind him, sunglasses on though the lights were dim, her lips pressed in the thin mockery of sympathy. "How is she?" Jordan asked, his voice dripping with practiced sorrow. My nurse didn't even turn around. "Stable," she said flatly. "For now." Jordan approached my bed, pretending to brush a strand of hair from my forehead, but his touch was cold, almost mocking. "She looks worse today," he murmured. Is it time to talk about next steps?" My nurse's hand tightened around the side rail of my bed. She didn't turn around, but her shoulders stiffened. "Next steps?" she repeated slowly, dangerously. Jordan sighed dramatically. "Yes, you know, the compassionate option, ending her suffering." Alina stepped forward then, her voice soft, sweet, venomous. "We just want what's best for her." Her hand slid over Jordan's arm, a gesture so subtle anyone else might have missed it. But I felt the air shift their unity, their shared darkness, their rehearsed cruelty. The nurse finally turned around. Her face was neutral, but her eyes were hard steel. "I'll speak with the attending physician," she said. "Alone." Jordan frowned. "I'm her husband. I should be part of that conversation." She stepped closer to him, closer than a nurse normally would, and looked him dead in the eyes. "You will be, when I'm ready." Something in her tone unsettled him. I saw his jaw tighten. He wasn't used to being denied. He wasn't used to people not folding beneath his confidence. He wasn't used to power shifting in a room he thought he controlled. The nurse walked out without another word, closing the door behind her. Jordan muttered under his breath. "Rude." Alina scoffed. "Whatever. She'll cave." But I felt something different, something new settling in the room like a quiet warning. For the first time, Jordan wasn't fully in control. Alina moved closer to my bed and leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper but sharp enough to slice me open. "You should have stayed dead on the road." Jordan chuckled softly. "She can't hear you," Alina smirked. "Even if she could, it's not like she's going to tell anyone." Jordan leaned down, his breath warm on my ear. "Tonight," he whispered, "I'll make sure everything ends, one way or another." My blood ran cold. He tapped my cheek lightly, casually, then straightened, checking his watch. "Come on," he said to Alina. "We need to finalize everything with the lawyer before visiting hours end." They left the room, laughing quietly as they walked down the hall, their voices fading but their poison lingering. When the door clicked shut, silence swallowed the room. My heart thundered as the air pump pushed steady breaths into my fragile lungs. Minutes crawled by before the door opened again. The nurse returned, but something in her demeanor had changed. Her steps quicker, her breathing harder, her eyes fierce with a mix of determination and dread. She closed the door quickly behind her. "We don't have much time," she whispered, approaching my bed and pulling the curtain fully closed. "Someone has tampered with your chart." She held up a tablet so I could see the screen. My file. Under family consent, a note had been added only minutes earlier. It read, "Husband requests withdrawal of life support due to non-recoverable neurological decline." I felt the air freeze inside me. She whispered, "It wasn't me, and it wasn't any doctor on this floor." Her voice trembled with anger. "Someone logged in under a physician's account, someone who knew exactly what to write." Jordan, Alina, they weren't waiting. They were accelerating. She moved quickly to unplug the monitor from the wall and rolled the entire console closer to me. "Listen carefully," she breathed. "Your EEG is showing voluntary micro-responses. Barely detectable, but enough for me to know you're in there." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I believe you can hear, and if you can hear, that means you're fighting." My eyes trembled a tiny, involuntary flicker. She saw it, her jaw clenched with fury. "Good, because they're trying to kill you." For a long moment, she didn't move, as if making a decision she couldn't undo. Then she spoke again, more quietly. "My sister was murdered by her ex. I know what it looks like when someone is pretending to grieve while planning their next move." She swallowed harshly. "Your husband has that same look." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small pager, her personal emergency line used only for internal crises. "I'm calling someone I trust," she whispered. "A doctor who actually cares about his patients. He'll know how to protect you legally and medically until we prove what's going on." She hesitated before adding, "But once I call him, everything changes. They will know someone is interfering." Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside again. Heavy, determined. Not in the rhythm of a visitor, these footsteps belonged to someone who never hesitated. Someone used to authority. The nurse inhaled sharply. "That's him," she whispered. "The doctor they forged the signature for." The doorknob turned. The nurse stepped into the corner, eyes sharp, ready. The doctor entered tall, composed, unreadable. He scanned the room with a gaze that lingered too long, too cold, too knowing. Then he looked at me, directly, and he smiled. A slow, quiet, terrifying smile. "Well," he murmured, closing the door behind him, "it seems today is the day we decide your fate." The doctor's smile froze the blood in my veins. It wasn't the smile of a healer or even a man pretending to be one. It was the smile of someone who already knew the ending of this story and believed he was the one writing it. He stepped toward my bed with slow, unhurried confidence, each footstep sinking into the silence like a countdown. The nurse moved closer to me protectively, her entire posture tense, her eyes tracking his every movement, but the doctor didn't acknowledge her. His gaze stayed locked on me, studying my lifeless body with a quiet intensity that made my skin crawl. "You've held on longer than expected," he murmured. "Jordan didn't think you would." My heart slammed once hard like it was preparing for war. The doctor chuckled softly. "Oh yes," he said, almost casually. "I know everything." The nurse snapped, "Step away from her." He didn't. Instead, he turned his head toward her with a slow, deliberate motion. "Nurse Hart," he said in a voice coated with condescension, "I see you've taken a particular interest in this patient's case." She crossed her arms, refusing to look intimidated. "Because someone tampered with her ventilator," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "And someone falsified her chart." He tilted his head. "Are you suggesting malpractice?" "I'm suggesting attempted murder," she shot back. "And I'm reporting it." The doctor stopped smiling. His eyes darkened, heavy, cold, final. He walked to the foot of my bed and tapped the metal railing twice with his fingers, as if thinking. Then he spoke with frightening calm. "There is no evidence," he said. "Not unless you want to explain why you were the last person to adjust her ventilator." The nurse froze not in guilt, but in sudden realization. He was framing her. The doctor leaned in closer, letting the implications sit between them like poison. "If you push this," he murmured, "your career is over." The nurse's lips trembled, but only for a second. Then steel returned to her posture. "Do you think I care about my career more than this woman's life?" she whispered. The doctor's eyes flicked toward the door, making sure no one was listening. Then his expression shifted, revealing a glimpse of the rot beneath his polished shell. "This woman is supposed to die," he said calmly. "Tonight." My heart monitor spiked wildly. He glanced at it, amused. "Interesting. A reflex arc? Or something more?" He leaned over me. "Can you hear me, Maya?" My soul screamed. The nurse stepped forward as if to physically block him. "You're done," she snapped. "I'm calling security." The doctor didn't even blink. "By the time they get here," he said, "her oxygen levels will have unexpectedly dropped." He reached for the ventilator tubing. The nurse lunged. "Don't touch her." Their struggle was silent, but vicious hands slapping away, elbows colliding, bodies shifting dangerously close to my equipment. The monitor beeped loudly as the ventilator shook from the impact. My chest tightened wildly. The doctor overpowered her briefly and shoved her back against the counter. "Stay out of this," he hissed, "or you will go down for this too." She steadied herself, breathing hard. "Why?" she demanded. "Why are you helping him?" The doctor paused. Then he said a name, a single name that shattered something inside me. Mark Ellis. My brother. My world stuttered. My brother. Gone for 6 years after a mysterious overdose no one could explain. The doctor smiled again. "He was my patient," he whispered. "Your husband made sure the autopsy stayed clean." Pain ripped through my mind like lightning. Jordan knew. Jordan had been involved. The doctor leaned closer. "And now Jordan is paying very well to ensure your case resolves in a way that prevents complications." The nurse's face twisted with horror. "You killed her brother." "I eased him out of his suffering," the doctor corrected coldly. "Just as I'll do for her." He reached for the ventilator again, quick, decisive. But the nurse was faster. She slammed her hand onto the code blue button. The alarm screamed through the room. Red lights flashed. Footsteps thundered down the hall. The doctor's mask cracked his face, contorting with raw fury. "You stupid girl," he spat. "You have no idea what you've done." The nurse stood between him and my bed like a shield, breathing hard, adrenaline shaking her hands but not her resolve. "Touch her again," she said through clenched teeth, "and I swear to God, I will bury you." He straightened his coat, composed but seething. "This isn't over," he whispered, backing toward the door. "Jordan will handle the rest." Then he slipped out, just as 2 nurses and a security guard burst in, responding to the alarm. The nurse worked fast, smoothing the ventilator tubing, adjusting my monitors, acting like nothing had happened. She knew the doctor had power to rewrite reports, power to destroy careers, power to bury the truth. She needed to play smart now. "False alarm," she said to the staff. "Equipment malfunction. Everything stable." They believed her. They left. The moment the door closed, she grabbed my hand. "I need to get you out of here," she whispered. "Now." My pulse pounded, fear, hope, terror crashing together. She leaned close, her breath shaking. "Tonight, before Jordan returns," she said, "I'm moving you to a secure wing with a new attending physician." She swallowed hard. "But we have to do it quietly. If they know you're still in here, still fighting, they will finish what they started." Her hand tightened around mine. "You are not dying tonight," she whispered fiercely. "Not on their terms, but outside the room, in the hallway." I heard them. Jordan's voice, Alina's voice. Close, too close. The nurse straightened sharply. "We don't have time." Footsteps stopped right outside my door, and Jordan said 6 words that made the hair on my arms rise. "Are you sure she won't feel it?" Jordan's voice slid under the door like smoke, cold and casual, as if he were asking about a dinner reservation instead of the end of my life. "Are you sure she won't feel it?" he asked, and my chest tightened until the ventilator strained to keep up. Alina's heels clicked softly beside him. "She's brain dead, Jordan," she whispered. "There's nothing left in there. The doctor said she's basically an empty shell." Jordan exhaled, almost relieved. "Good. I can't have her suffering. That's not what I wanted." Liar. He'd wanted exactly that, my silence, my disappearance, my erasure. The nurse stiffened, frozen beside my bed. She glanced at me, eyes wide with terror and urgency. If they walked in now, they'd see my heart monitor spiking. They'd see the truth. She moved fast. She grabbed the blanket and pulled it tight over my chest to hide the accelerating rise and fall. Then she pressed her fingers into my shoulder gently, a signal. "Stay calm. Stay still." I tried. God, I tried. But fear ripped through my body like electricity. Jordan's hand pressed on the door handle. The nurse acted instantly. She stepped between the bed and the entrance, blocking their view. The door cracked open. Jordan's face appeared beautiful, composed, polished, and wearing that mask the world always believed. "Nurse Hart," he said warmly. "We just wanted to check on her before speaking with the doctor." Her expression was neutral, even bored. "She's unchanged," she said. "Unresponsive, no eye movement, no reflexes. I'm about to reposition her. You'll have to come back in 10 minutes." Alina leaned in beside him, her perfume pushing into the room like a violation. "Can we just look at her for a second?" The nurse didn't blink. "Do you want her to aspirate? Because moving her while she's congested increases the risk." Jordan hesitated. He hated being challenged, especially by someone he considered beneath him. But the nurse stayed firm. 10 minutes, she repeated. The door closed slowly. Their voices lowered outside. The nurse let out a shaking breath and turned to me. "We don't have 10 minutes, she whispered. She unplugged my chart from its wall slot and pulled off her badge. "We have 2 minutes before they realize something's off. I need to move you now." She grabbed the side rails of my bed, walking briskly to the opposite wall where a hidden service corridor connected to other wings. But just as she reached for the panel, footsteps rushed back fast, determined. Jordan's voice sharpened. "Open the door." The nurse's entire body went rigid. "Damn it," she whispered. She spun my bed toward the corner and flicked off the overhead lights. The room plunged into dim blue darkness, only the machines glowing. She barely finished when the door shoved open. Light flooded in behind Jordan's silhouette. He stepped in with the confidence of a man who believed the world bent for him. Alina followed, silent but triumphant. The nurse pretended to be adjusting my ventilator tubing. Jordan approached the bed, his face softening with what looked like grief. False grief, practiced grief. "She looks worse," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers grazed my skin. I wanted to vomit. "Her color is fading," Alina added. Maybe it's time, Jordan." He looked at her, eyes glistening. "I don't want to rush this." Rush this? He'd paid a doctor to kill me. Alina touched his back lightly. "She wouldn't want to live like this." Jordan stared at me for a long moment. His mask cracked just slightly. "I wish she knew how much I loved her," he whispered, loud enough for the nurse to hear. The nurse bit down on her tongue so hard I saw blood bloom on her lip. Jordan wasn't done. He leaned closer to me, speaking softly as if sharing a secret with my corpse. "You deserved better, Maya," he said. "But life doesn't always go the way we hope." My pulse spiked so sharply the heart monitor chirped. Jordan's eyes snapped to it. The nurse stepped forward instantly. "Equipment glitch," she said. "Happens all the time with older monitors." Jordan didn't look convinced. He narrowed his eyes. "I thought the doctor said she had 0 brain activity." "She doesn't," the nurse replied. "Muscle reflex can spike the reading." Jordan stared at the screen, then at me. His gaze lingered too long. Then he said something almost inaudible. "You're not still in there, right?" I held my breath. He leaned in. Closer, closer, his face inches from mine. I could smell his cologne, the same one he wore the night he first told me he loved me. "If you are," he whispered, "this will all be over soon." A chill ran down my spine. He straightened suddenly. "Where's the doctor?" he asked sharply. "He said he'd meet us here." The nurse hesitated. "He was called away." Jordan pulled out his phone. "I'll find him." He stepped aside and dialed. The doctor answered immediately. "Yes? We're in her room," Jordan said. "You said tonight." "I'm preparing everything now," the doctor replied. "I'll be there in 5 minutes." My body went cold. 5 minutes. That was all the time left between their plan and my death. The nurse looked at me with pure fear but also fire. Then she made a decision. A dangerous one. She walked to Jordan with steady hands. "Sir," she said softly, "if you want to say goodbye privately, I can give you a moment." Jordan blinked, surprised. Alina stiffened. "What? Why?" "It's procedure," the nurse lied. "Family gets a final moment before withdrawal." Jordan's jaw clenched, tortured husband mask returning perfectly. "Yes," he said, voice cracking. "I want that." Alina's face twisted with envy. "I should be here too." "Family only," the nurse insisted. Jordan hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, just me." The nurse stepped out of the room with Alina, closing the door behind them. For 2 seconds, silence filled the room. And then everything shifted. The nurse burst back inside through the service corridor door behind my bed, her eyes fierce, determined. "This is our only chance," she whispered urgently. "The side corridor leads to the neonatal unit. They won't look for you there. Hold on, Maya." She unlocked my bed's wheels. "We're running." The moment the nurse unlocked the wheels of my bed, the entire world shifted into a frantic blur of motion. She pushed me through the narrow service doorway, her breath already fast and harsh. And for the first time since waking in this nightmare, my body felt like it was actually moving toward survival rather than toward death. The hallway was dim, lit only by thin strips of fluorescent bulbs overhead, buzzing like angry insects. "We have maybe 30 seconds before they realize I slipped back," she whispered, her hands gripping the bed rail so tightly her knuckles turned white. "He can't see me missing, or it's over." My heart monitor beeped in rapid fire bursts, too loud, too revealing. The nurse slapped the power off with one swift motion, plunging us into silence, except for the wheels squeaking under the bed frame. The absence of beeping felt like being unplugged from the last thread connecting me to safety, but she didn't slow down. "Breathe, Maya," she whispered. "I've got you." The corridor was long, far too long, and every shadow felt like a trap, every distant voice like a threat. Footsteps echoed somewhere behind us, male footsteps, heavy, fast. "The doctor." The nurse muttered, "Damn it," and pushed faster. The bed rattled violently over uneven tile, jolting my neck with every bump, but she didn't dare stop. The voices grew louder. "Where is she?" the doctor shouted. "Where's the nurse?" Another voice, Alina's, answered sharply. "Jordan is inside waiting. She's not here." She lied. Rage coated every word. The nurse wheeled me around a corner, nearly slamming my bed into a linen cart, swearing under her breath, "They're too close. We need to disappear now." She darted into a storage room and shut the door with a soft click. The air inside was stale and metallic, smelling of disinfectant and old oxygen tanks. She tucked my bed between towering shelves of medical supplies, positioning me in the deepest shadow. Then she crouched beside me, trembling. "If they check this hallway, we can't move," she whispered. "You have to stay silent. No breathing changes. No eye movement. Nothing." The doorknob rattled. My heart froze solid in my chest. The nurse clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from gasping. The doctor's voice seeped through the crack like poison. "Check every room, now." Footsteps swarmed the hallway, hands pounded on doors. Storage closets opened. Lights flicked on and off. My lungs strained against the ventilator rhythm, fighting the urge to scream. The nurse's fingers dug into my arm, her silent plea for stillness. Through the tiny gap beneath the door, I saw shoes stop directly outside our room, black leather. The doctor's. He stood still, listening, waiting, testing the silence like a predator sniffing for prey. My pulse pounded so hard, I felt the vibrations against the mattress. Then, the doorknob turned. Slowly, softly. The door opened an inch. A sliver of hallway light cut through the darkness and landed directly across my face. I couldn't blink, couldn't breathe harder, couldn't give away a single sign that I was aware and alive. The doctor pushed the door open farther. His shadow stretched across the floor like a stain. He stepped inside, scanning the shelves with quick, sharp movements. "I know she came this way," he muttered. The nurse stayed completely still behind the shelving. My bed felt exposed, undefended, helpless. He stepped deeper into the room, closer to me. His shoes stopped less than 3 feet from my face. "Nurse Hart," he called out softly, "you can't hide her forever." The silence was suffocating. He crouched his head, appearing above the shelf line. His eyes narrowed at the darkness. Just a little farther and he would see me. Then a loud crash burst from the hallway. Someone smashed into a metal cart. "Jordan!" Alina screamed. "The doctor needs you." He jerked upright. "What? Now? They found something." Another crash, more shouting. The doctor swore under his breath and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The nurse collapsed back against the wall and let out a shaky exhale. "Someone upstairs is watching over you," she whispered. "We're moving, now, before they lock down the floor." She wheeled me back out, and we darted down the hallway, turning sharply into another service passage. A set of double doors came into view, with a glowing sign above it. "Neonatal Unit, authorized personnel only." "Almost there," she said, pushing faster. We burst through just as an alarm blared somewhere behind us, an alarm that was not meant for patient emergencies, a security lockdown. They noticed you're gone, she whispered. We need to blend in. The neonatal ward was warm, filled with soft lights and hushed voices. Nurses bustled around tiny incubators. Machines hummed gently. It felt like another universe, one untouched by the chaos hunting us. Nurse Hart strode in with confidence, like she belonged there. Ventilator malfunction, she announced to the nearest staff member, tapping the blank monitor on my bed. I'm transferring her to the backup wing until biomedical can check it. The staff barely looked at us, they were too busy. Perfect. She maneuvered me into a side room, shut the curtain, and finally allowed herself to breathe. Okay, she whispered, wiping sweat from her forehead. We bought time. Not much, but enough. She knelt beside me, her voice steady but urgent. Maya, what I'm about to do is risky. We're going to get you out of this hospital. Terror surged through me, but so did hope. I know you can hear me, she continued, and I need you to listen closely. I can't protect you forever, not here, but I can get you to people who can. She reached beneath the bed and pulled out a small keycard, one with red markings. This opens the ambulance bay. The plan is simple. I wheel you to emergency transport. We load you into an ambulance, and we drive. A sound cut her off. Not yelling, not footsteps, something worse. The overhead speaker crackled, and the doctor's voice boomed through the entire hospital. Attention staff, he said calmly. A critical patient on life support has gone missing from the ICU. This is a level 4 alert. All exits are now sealed. No patients are to be moved without my clearance. The nurse's face drained of all color. He just trapped us in here, she whispered. Then she grabbed my bed. But we're not dying here. She pushed me toward the exit, but suddenly the curtain ripped open. Jordan stood there, alone, his expression dark, twisted, and triumphant. Found you. Jordan stood in the doorway like a shadow that had finally found its owner, his silhouette blocking every sliver of light from the hallway behind him. His chest rose and fell with slow, controlled breaths, the kind people take when they've already decided what they're about to do. Behind him, alarms wailed through the building, drowning out the soft hum of the neonatal ward. Babies cried, nurses rushed past, but none of it mattered. His eyes were fixed only on me. You really thought you could hide her? He said, stepping inside. His voice was quiet, but cruelly amused, like a man scolding a child. The nurse moved instantly, planting herself between him and my bed, arms spread as if her own body could shield me. Jordan, she said, her voice steady despite the panic trembling beneath it. You need to leave. Security is on their way. Jordan ignored her completely. His eyes stayed locked on my face, my helpless, frozen, terrified face. Maya, he whispered, you've caused more trouble tonight than you ever did in 10 years. My lungs tightened. He took another step, and the nurse shoved him back with both hands. I said, leave, she snapped. Jordan's jaw flexed. Do not touch me. Do not go near her, she shot back. For a moment, he simply stared at the nurse, measuring her. Then he smiled, a slow, chilling smile that told me he already knew how this confrontation would end. You think you can stop this? He asked softly. You think you can stop me? The nurse didn't flinch. I know I can. Jordan's smile disappeared. He lunged. The nurse dodged, grabbing a rolling tray and slamming it into his shoulder with a loud metallic crash. He stumbled, cursing, and she seized the moment, pulling my bed toward the back exit of the ward. Move, Maya, she whispered urgently, as if my soul could somehow push the wheels faster. But before we got far, Jordan roared behind us. Stop. He grabbed the bed's railing and yanked with vicious strength, jerking the entire frame sideways. The nurse lost her grip and fell to her knees. My ventilator tugged dangerously, my head snapping against the pillow. Jordan leaned over me, panting, his fingers clamped around the railing. His face hovered inches from mine. Look at you, he murmured, voice trembling with rage. Weak, helpless, just like that night. That night. The argument about the baby, the shove, the fall, the pain. My blood on the hardwood, his face above me saying, this is your fault. My monitor wasn't connected to power anymore, but the fear spiked so hard I felt the tremor ripple through my chest. Jordan saw the flicker in my eyes, and his expression changed: shock, then dread, then something darker. You're awake, he whispered. aren't you?" The nurse sprang up behind him, grabbing a metal pole and swinging it like a bat. It collided with his back. Jordan collapsed forward onto my bed, choking on air. "Get away from her!" she screamed. She swung again, this time aiming for his arms. Jordan rolled away, covering his head, groaning in pain. She grabbed my bed and sprinted, pushing me down the hallway with both hands. "Hold on, Maya," she panted. "We're not losing now." Behind us, Jordan's furious voice echoed through the ward. "Stop them! Somebody stop them!" The nurse didn't slow. She turned sharply, barreling through a set of double doors that led into a dim, deserted recovery wing. Most lights were off, leaving only emergency red strips glowing along the floor. "We need to reach the ambulance bay," she said, breathless. "Once we're outside, he can't control the narrative." She pushed harder, but the corridor seemed endless, stretching like a nightmare that refused to end. A loud clang shattered the silence. The door behind us flew open. Jordan sprinted inside, not alone. 2 security guards followed because they believed him. Because the doctor had told them we were the threat, the nurse whispered, "Oh God," and pushed faster, her shoes skidding on the tile. "Nurse Hart," Jordan shouted, "stop, or they will force you to." She didn't stop. One guard yelled, "Ma'am, step away from the patient now." She didn't even look back. "If you point that taser at me," she called out. "You're killing her too," the guard shouted again. "Stop now." She didn't. A sharp crackling sound filled the hallway. A taser charging. Jordan's voice cut through the noise. "Do it." The zap came instantly. A scream tore from the nurse's throat as electricity slammed through her body. She collapsed, hitting the floor hard, twitching violently. My bed coasted forward without her, drifting to a stop several feet away. The guards rushed past her, heading straight for me. Jordan walked slowly, almost leisurely, stepping over the nurse's trembling form. "You just made this worse," he murmured down at her. Then he crouched beside me, brushing hair from my forehead with false tenderness. "I know you can hear me," he whispered. "I can see it now. I see the way your eyes react, the way your chest rises when I speak." He smiled, a small, terrible smile. Too late. He motioned to the guards. "Take her back to ICU before the doctor arrives. He'll handle it." "Yes, sir. And restrain the nurse," Jordan added. "She assaulted me." One guard grabbed the nurse, yanking her arms behind her back. She groaned weakly, her cheek pressed to the cold tile. Jordan leaned over me again. His breath ghosted my ear. "Tonight," he whispered, "this ends. No more surprises, no more chances." One guard released the brake on my bed. The other grabbed the footboard. They turned me toward the ICU corridor. That's when I heard it faint, but real. A baby crying. Then a voice yelling, "Stop, you can't move that patient." A nurse from neonatal ran into the hall. Behind her, 3 more. Real staff, not corrupted, not bought. They surrounded the guards instantly. "That patient is under neonatal transfer," one barked. "Where are your orders?" The guards froze, conflicted. Jordan snarled. I gave the order. "You're not medical staff," the neonatal nurse snapped. "You don't get to override transfer protocol." Jordan's face twisted with panic. "Move her now." "No," the nurse said firmly. "Not without paperwork." For the first time, Jordan looked trapped, cornered, desperate. He lunged toward my bed, grabbing the railing, ready to drag me himself. But the neonatal staff blocked him. "Step back," they warned, "or we call hospital administration." Jordan's mask cracked completely. "She needs to be restrained." "She's dangerous. She's unconscious. She's brain dead," Jordan snapped. "And we're ending life support." The neonatal nurse folded her arms. "Funny," she said coldly, "because this monitor shows voluntary respiratory spikes." Jordan's face drained of all color. He realized the truth. They knew. They finally knew. And so did everyone gathering behind them. A dozen eyes stared, and Jordan, my husband, was finally exposed. For a moment, no one breathed. The neonatal staff stood braced like a human barricade around my bed, while Jordan froze in the middle of the corridor, his face contorting as the reality sank in. He wasn't in control anymore. Not here. Not with witnesses. His eyes flicked between the nurses, calculating, hunting for someone weak enough to manipulate. But these weren't ICU staff who'd been coerced or misled by the corrupt doctor. These were women who spent their nights keeping premature babies alive. They had zero tolerance for danger, zero tolerance for liars, and the shift in power hit Jordan like a slap. "Sir," one nurse said sharply, "step away from the patient." Jordan tried to recover his mask, smoothing his shirt, forcing shakiness out of his voice. "Look, this is a misunderstanding. I'm her husband. I have power of attorney. This patient has no neurological function and is scheduled for life support withdrawal." "Says who?" the charge nurse snapped. "The attending physician," Jordan insisted. "Dr. Calder." The nurses exchanged looks, cold, knowing, suspicious. Finally, one spoke. "Dr. Calder is under internal review. He has no authority right now." Jordan's jaw clenched so hard the muscles twitched. "That's impossible." "No," she said bluntly. "What's impossible is a ventilated patient showing cognitive respiratory spikes." She lifted the portable monitor clipped to my bed frame, the one Nurse Hart had attached before the taser incident. Jordan hadn't noticed. Not until now. On the screen, the waveforms fluttered. Not irregularly, not randomly, patterned, reactive, alive. "This patient isn't brain dead," the nurse declared. "Far from it. Look at these responses." The hallway erupted. Voices, questions, shocked gasps. Security's eyes widened. Jordan's face drained of blood, turning pale and waxy like a man watching his own downfall in slow motion. His stare snapped back to me to my eyes, and I made the tiniest, smallest shift. A flicker, a glimmer, enough. Every nurse saw it, every guard saw it. Jordan staggered backward like he'd been punched. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no, she can't. She can hear us," a neonatal nurse breathed. This whole time, Jordan's world cracked open, and panic, real panic, finally flooded his eyes. "Wait!" he shouted, raising both hands. "Everyone stop, this is not what it looks like," a nurse scoffed. "It looks like you tried to move a conscious patient illegally." Another narrowed her eyes. "Why were you rushing a life support termination?" Jordan swallowed hard, his Adam's apple jerking. "Because she told me it was her wish years ago. She never wanted heroic measures, she." "Have you seen her advance directive?" "Well, no, but—" "Then you have no authority tonight," the charge nurse cut in. "Not until the neurologist completes a full exam." The guard holding Nurse Hart looked shaken. "Sir," he said reluctantly, "we need to pause all actions until protocol is verified." Jordan turned on him with a snarl. "Are you insane? She's dangerous. She attacked my wife." "She's unconscious," another nurse shot back. "Try again." Jordan's facade shattered. He lunged toward me. Instantly, 3 nurses blocked him. "Back up," one yelled, "or security removes you." "Do your damn job," Jordan screamed at the guards. "Stop them." "Stop." A siren blared overhead. Not a baby monitor, not a code blue. A hospital-wide security override. Code silver, weapon threat. The hallway froze. Everyone looked around, terrified. Then a voice boomed through the speaker. "All units. Dr. Calder reported with a weapon in ICU East. Initiate lockdown." The nurses stiffened. The guards stiffened. Jordan stiffened. The doctor, the man who'd been trying to kill me, armed, loose, coming. Jordan whispered, "Oh God." The charge nurse snapped into command mode instantly. "We're moving the patient now. Secure wing C." "But lockdown," one guard protested. "Override corridor 3B, she snapped. "Move." They formed a protective ring around my bed and began pushing fast, wheels screeching against the tile. The newborn unit sealed behind us with steel shutters slamming into place. The hallway ahead dimmed to emergency red. Jordan followed because he knew if he stayed behind, the doctor would reach him too. And Jordan was a coward before everything else. "Why is he coming here?" one guard asked. "Because he knows the plan is falling apart," a nurse muttered. "And desperate men do stupid things." Footsteps echoed behind us. Heavy, rapid, too close. The guard turned. "Someone's running this way. Don't stop," the charge nurse ordered. "Move faster." The corridor opened into a wider hallway, mirrored walls, polished floors, empty except for the row of security doors ahead. The guards swiped their badges. Red light. Access denied. The panel chirped. Override in progress. Damn it, the guard cursed. He slammed the panel again. Override in progress. He locked us out, the nurse whispered. He's driving us toward him. Panic pulsed through me like electricity. The sound of running feet grew louder, closer, turning into the metallic rhythm of someone sprinting full speed. Then suddenly, the doctor emerged from the shadows at the far end of the hall. Not walking, running. Eyes wild, hands shaking, a glint of metal in his right hand. A scalpel. A nurse gasped. Everyone back up, the guards drew their batons. Jordan stumbled behind them like a shield. The nurse grabbed my bed and yanked it backward, trying to create distance, but the hallway wasn't wide enough. Nowhere to run. The doctor slowed as he approached, breath ragged, hair disheveled, eyes burning with unhinged rage. You, he hissed at the nurse. You did this. The guards stepped in front of my bed. Drop the weapon, one ordered. The doctor didn't even hear him. His gaze locked on me. She wasn't supposed to wake up, he whispered, voice trembling. She wasn't supposed to be able to wake up. Jordan promised. Jordan screamed. Don't say my name. The doctor snapped. You set this in motion. You cut her brakes. Jordan fired back. The hallway erupted with gasps. Nurses stared in horror. Guards froze. The doctor blinked, then smiled a horrifying, thin smile. Yes, he said softly. And you paid me to finish the job. Jordan lunged. Shut up. But it was too late. Everyone heard. Everyone understood. And the guards turned slowly toward Jordan. The doctor lifted the scalpel high, eyes wild. I'll fix this, he whispered. I'll finish what we started. He sprinted toward my bed, straight at me, screaming. The doctor charged at my bed with the scalpel raised high, his scream slicing through the hallway sharper than the blade itself. Everything slowed, the red emergency lights flickering over his twisted face, the guard stepping forward too late, Jordan stumbling backward like a coward retreating from his own crimes. The nurse grabbed my bed, bracing herself as if her body alone could stop the impact. She couldn't. He was too fast, too desperate, too far gone. The scalpel arced downward in a brutal swing aimed directly at my throat. But at the last possible second, a security guard crashed into him, tackling him to the floor with a deafening slam. The scalpel skittered across the tile, spinning under a crash cart. The doctor thrashed wildly, screaming, "Let me finish! Let me finish what he started!" The guard wrestled with him, struggling to pin his arms. The doctor fought like a man possessed, kicking and clawing, frothing with pure rage. Another guard jumped in, forcing his wrists to the ground. But the doctor bucked upward, deranged strength fueled by adrenaline. She was supposed to die, he howled. You don't understand, she ruins everything. Jordan backed against the wall, shaking, eyes darting everywhere like a trapped animal seeking an exit. The nurses closed around my bed protectively. The doctor twisted violently under the guards, reaching for the scalpel. His fingers grazed the handle. No! The nurse screamed. One guard slammed his boot down on the doctor's hand so hard he let out an inhuman howl. The second guard cuffed his wrists behind his back. They wrestled him upright, his body jerking like an animal in a trap. But as they dragged him away, his eyes locked on me wide, unblinking, filled with manic hatred. She heard everything, he hissed, spittle flying. She knows. She knows. Jordan's face collapsed, cracked, exposed. The doctor spat blood onto the floor. You're finished, he snarled at Jordan. You promised me protection. You promised. Jordan's voice cracked. Shut up, he whispered, barely audible. The doctor laughed, deranged. I'm dragging you down with me. Every last detail, every payment, every message. A nurse gasped. A guard muttered, Jesus Christ, and Jordan for the first time snapped. It wasn't supposed to go this far, he yelled. You were supposed to make it look natural. You weren't supposed to screw up. Their argument was no longer whispers, no longer careful, no longer deniable. The entire hallway heard it. Nurses, guards, a respiratory tech who had come running at the alarm. Every witness needed to destroy them. The doctor was dragged farther down the hall, still screaming. Jordan stood frozen, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his temples. And then he made the biggest mistake of his life. He ran. He sprinted down the opposite hallway, crashing into equipment, slipping on the tile, nearly falling. A guard shouted, "Stop!" But Jordan didn't stop, not even when 2 more security officers appeared at the end of the corridor. He skidded to a halt, cornered, trapped. He pressed both hands to his head, muttering, "This isn't happening. This isn't happening." She wasn't supposed to, she was never supposed to wake up. The guards approached slowly, forming a semicircle around him. "Sir," one said cautiously, "we need you to come with us." Jordan snapped his head up. No, you don't understand. I'm the victim here. She attacked my wife. She destroyed my life. She made me do." A guard cut him off. We heard everything. Jordan's mouth hung open, then shut again. He looked toward me. And for a chilling moment, his expression softened like he was returning to the mask one more time. "Maya," he said, voice trembling with faux tenderness. "You know I loved you." The nurses stiffened. Even the guards looked disgusted. Jordan stepped toward my bed slowly, like a man approaching the only person who could save him. "You know I didn't mean for this to happen," he whispered. "If you just listened more. If you didn't make everything so difficult." The charge nurse snapped. "Back away from her." Jordan ignored her. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a cursed intimacy. "I shouldn't have to pay for this," he breathed. "We were supposed to have a good life, but you ruined everything when you—" His body jerked violently. A guard grabbed him by the collar and yanked him backward. Jordan fell to the floor. The guard slammed cuffs around his wrists. "You're under arrest," he said firmly. Jordan's eyes darted wildly. "What charges? For what?" The guard replied, "Attempted murder, conspiracy, medical fraud, and whatever else your friend back there just admitted to on camera." Jordan froze. "Camera?" The guard pointed upward. "Every hallway, every corner, every moment, recorded." Jordan's face shifted from shock to horror to rage. He thrashed in the guard's grip. "Let me go," he screamed. "That video can't be used. She can't testify. She's a vegetable." Every nurse exchanged looks. One of them whispered, "Not anymore." The guard hauling him away said, "The neurologist is already on his way." Jordan's face twisted. No. She can't wake up. She can't!" His screams echoed as they dragged him down the hallway, slowly fading, slowly dying. The nurse sank to her knees beside my bed, touching my hand gently. "It's over, Maya," she whispered. "You're safe now." But as alarms stopped and staff gathered and voices rose with confusion, something inside me knew the truth. It wasn't over. Not yet. Because I still had one more battle left, waking up. The hallway lights blurred as they rushed me back into a private ICU suite, but even as nurses whispered urgently around me, I wasn't thinking about Jordan screaming down the corridor or the doctor being dragged off in cuffs. I was thinking about the one truth no one understood yet. Waking up was not the end of the nightmare. It was the beginning of the part Jordan feared most. Because now, for the first time, I had proof. Proof of every whispered plan, every payment, every betrayal he thought I was too unconscious to hear. The nurse adjusted the monitors and leaned close. "Maya, stay with me," she murmured, voice trembling. "The neurologist is coming. You're safe now." But I wasn't safe. Not yet. Because I could hear footsteps outside the door. Heavy. Calculated. Footsteps I recognized. My heart monitor spiked. The nurse turned sharply. "What?" The door handle twitched. Slowly, carefully, too carefully. The nurse stepped between me and the door just as it creaked open an inch. A man in a suit stood there, not a guard, not a doctor. Expression unreadable, eyes cold. He scanned the room with a calm that chilled me more than Jordan's panic ever had. The charge nurse demanded, "Can we help you?" The man's voice was low, polished, rehearsed. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Taylor." My blood turned to ice. Jordan. Of course he wasn't finished. Of course he had someone else. The nurse stiffened. "Sir, Mr. Taylor has been detained. He no longer has access or authority here." The man smiled. Small, tight, professional. "I'm not here about access." His eyes slid to me. "I'm here for the documents." The documents, the ones Jordan and the doctor whispered about, the forged medical directive, the altered consent forms, the financial transfers, the one sitting in a sealed evidence bag somewhere. The nurse stepped forward. "There are no documents in this room." The man exhaled softly, almost disappointed. "I'm not here to search the room. I'm here to make sure nothing leaves it." He moved his coat aside. A holster gleamed. Not a hospital guard. Not a cop. A fixer. Someone hired for the messiest jobs. The nurse's face drained of color. But before she could react, the security intercom crackled overhead. "ICU Suite A. Guards en route." The man's jaw tightened. He had expected privacy, speed, silence, not witnesses, not delays. His eyes flicked to the hallway. He had seconds, maybe less. And in those seconds, he made a choice. He lunged for my bed. The nurse threw herself in front of him, pushing against his chest, screaming for help. He shoved her aside, hard. She slammed into the counter, crashing to the floor. My heart monitor shrieked. He reached for my oxygen line. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. No more loose ends. But before his fingers reached me, a deafening crash erupted behind him. The door flew open. 2 security officers slammed into the man, tackling him to the ground with brutal force. The nurse gasped for breath, clutching the counter, shouting. He tried to silence her. He was going to tamper with her equipment. The guards fought to restrain him, but he wasn't panicking like Jordan. He was controlled, silent, deadly. Even as they pinned his wrists, he said nothing. No defense, no struggle. Just a cold, calculating stare aimed straight at me. And then, very quietly, he spoke. Not to the guards, not to the nurse, to me. "It doesn't matter. You woke up, but you won't speak." The words sliced deeper than any scalpel. The guards hauled him to his feet and dragged him out, but his voice echoed long after the door shut. The nurse rushed to my side, trembling. "Maya, there's more to this than we knew." She squeezed my hand. "You're not just a victim, you're a target." Moments later, the neurologist rushed in, a calm, older man with exhaustion carved into his face. He examined me, tested reflexes, waved a penlight across my eyes. And then, softly, he whispered the sentence everyone feared but no one dared say. "She is fully conscious." The room froze. The nurse cried. Another nurse covered her mouth in shock. The neurologist leaned close. "Maya, blink twice if you understand me." I blinked twice. The nurse sobbed. "You're back." But I blinked again, longer, slower, desperate. The neurologist frowned. "She's trying to say something else." I blinked once, twice, 3 times, over and over. The nurse understood first. Her voice broke. "She's scared." The neurologist nodded grimly. "And she should be." He turned to the staff. "No one but essential personnel enters this room. No one touches her equipment without double verification. And from now on, she is under active protection." Protection. The word felt fragile, temporary. Because I knew Jordan wasn't done, and whoever that man had been, it meant Jordan wasn't working alone. Somewhere inside this hospital were more of them. People paid to finish what he started. My chest tightened. The monitor beeped erratically. The nurse grabbed my hand. "Stay with me, Maya. Don't panic." But panic had already taken root, because suddenly alarms blared overhead. Code red. Unauthorized personnel in ICU. The nurse spun toward the door. "They're coming," she whispered. "Maya, they're not done." Voices erupted in the hallway. Running footsteps. Shouting. A crash. My heart hammered so violently the monitor nearly screamed. The lights flickered. Another crash. Closer. The nurse locked the door, hands shaking. "Please," she whispered to no one and everyone. "Please, just let the police get here first." But deep down, every part of me already knew something. The truth that would shape the final piece of this nightmare. Jordan wasn't trying to silence me anymore. He was trying to erase the evidence I held inside my mind. Because the worst thing I overheard that night, the darkest part of his plan, hadn't been spoken yet. I knew something he couldn't afford anyone to hear. And he would burn the whole hospital down before letting me tell it. The hallway felt like it was collapsing inward, every sound bending around me, sharpening into something almost inhuman as the alarms continued to scream. I could hear footsteps, fast, purposeful, multiplied, echoing down the corridor in patterns that didn't belong to hospital staff. The nurse stayed pressed against the door, her breathing ragged, her hands trembling so violently I could hear her nails tapping the metal. "Maya," she whispered, "whatever happens next, you survived longer than anyone expected. You're stronger than he ever believed." But strength didn't matter now. Survival didn't matter now. Because in that rising storm of shouting voices and pounding boots, I recognized a rhythm. Jordan's voice, strained with fury, layered under someone else's commands. It made no sense. He was supposed to be in custody, restrained, yet he was here. Or someone who wanted me to think he was. The nurse grabbed a rolling tray and shoved it against the door as a weak makeshift barricade. "Help is coming," she said, but her voice cracked on the last word. She didn't believe it, and she was right. Because I finally understood the truth Jordan had spent months trying to bury. I knew his secret, not the affair, not the attempted murder. Those were just surface rot. The real secret was the reason he needed me dead, the one he whispered to the doctor when he thought I was gone forever. I knew the name of the person funding him. I knew the offshore account he used to hide the money they funneled to him. I knew about the incident years ago, the one he thought no one remembered the night a woman vanished after threatening to expose him. And I knew the identity of the person who disappeared her. That was the secret he couldn't let me say. A crash shook the entire door. The nurse yelped. Another crash, something metallic struck the lock. They were trying to break in. The lights flickered again as the emergency generator kicked on. I heard more shouting guards trying to hold them back, but the sounds were fading, overpowered by deeper voices, angrier voices. Someone pounded on the door hard enough to bend the tray. The nurse screamed, "Security is coming, they'll be here in seconds." But whoever was outside didn't care. A cold voice hissed from behind the door, calm and cruel. "Move away from her, this doesn't concern you." It wasn't Jordan. It was someone lower, someone taking orders, someone who didn't fear consequences. The nurse pushed harder against the barricade, terror in her eyes. "You're not getting her," she said through her teeth. "Not today." The voice outside answered, "We don't need long." The lock groaned again, then a deafening sound echoed as the door flew open, throwing the tray across the room. The nurse stumbled back as two men in dark jackets stepped through the doorway, the cold certainty in their eyes telling me everything. This wasn't a spontaneous attack. It had been planned, coordinated. The first man stepped forward. "Move," he ordered. The nurse shook her head. "No." The second man reached for my ventilator tubing. The nurse lunged at him, grabbing his arm. He shoved her so hard she crashed into the side of my bed, her breath knocked out. He reached again, but suddenly a thunderous command boomed from behind them. "Hands up or you will be fired upon." Security, real security. Uniforms filled the corridor, and the two men froze. The nurse gasped in relief, collapsing against the bed frame. The officers stormed in, grabbing the intruders, pushing them face first against the wall. But as they hauled them out, one of the men twisted his head toward me, eyes burning with a message not meant for anyone else. "He's not done," he whispered. "You can tell the truth, but he'll still get to you first." They dragged him away as the nurse clutched her chest, shaking. "Maya, it's over. They're gone. They're finally gone." But I knew better. Jordan wasn't behind that door. The real threat was still out there, somewhere, watching, waiting. Minutes later, officers flooded the room, two detectives, a federal agent, a hospital administrator whose face was pale as paper. The agent approached slowly. "Mrs. Taylor, we have detained multiple individuals connected to your husband. The operation appears larger than we initially understood." The nurse whispered, "Tell her. She needs to know." The agent looked straight at me. "Your husband isn't in local custody anymore. Federal charges were added. He was transferred hours ago after evidence surfaced involving past incidents." My blood turned cold. They knew. They found something. But the agent wasn't finished. Before the transfer, he requested a phone call. He spoke to someone. We don't know who. The room fell silent. The nurse grabbed my wrist gently. "Maya, you're safe here. But we need your statement as soon as you're strong enough. You're the only living witness to what he confessed." The agent nodded grimly. "You're the only person who knows who he was talking about. The only one who knows why he needed you gone." My heart pounded, but not from fear because I knew the truth they didn't. The person Jordan spoke to, the one pulling strings behind the curtain, the one who had more to lose than anyone, wasn't Alina, it wasn't the doctor, it wasn't the men who tried to break into my room. It was someone whose existence was held together by one secret I wasn't supposed to hear. And now I could tell it. But I also knew something else, something darker. The moment I spoke their name out loud, my life would change forever. The nurse leaned close. Maya? Who was he working with? I blinked once, twice, 3 times. And for the first time since waking up, I felt the terror shift into something sharper. Resolve. Because I wasn't the woman on the bed anymore. I wasn't the victim gasping between machines. I was the only person alive who had heard the truth. And as the agent leaned forward, pen ready, waiting for my first word, I realized something chilling. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the war I never asked for. And before I revealed anything, I needed to be ready for the person who would come for me next. Because the last thing Jordan said, the dark truth still echoing in the back of my mind, was the one sentence that changed everything. And now it was my turn to use it.